All right. Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
I can hear you loud and clear, Coach Jay, but I can't see you.
Yeah, you can't, right? That's my fault. Hold on 1 second. Let me share that with you. Got Coach Paul in the dark over here. But hopefully you all can hear us and see us well as well. Welcome to At the Buzzer. Happy Monday, everybody. Let me get Coach Paul situated with our charts here. You should be all good now.
We're all good now.
Good to go. Good to go. Happy Monday. Feels like a Monday.
It does feel like a Monday. As the old song goes, I don't like Mondays. But
That's it? That's the only lyric?
oh no, it's an old song,
Got
but
you.
it's a pretty depressing song, so I won't
Okay.
go in the whole
Let's talk happy
background of
thoughts.
it.
Let's talk happy
Let's
thoughts.
talk happy thoughts.
Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, the goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity. We want to see how we can take advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. This is our first time meeting. I'm Coach Jay, been a Topstep performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep since April of 2023. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share my experiences, some knowledge, and hopefully assist you in your trading.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for that, Coach Paul. You are all our chat, our audience. We want to thank you, like we do every day, for joining us. Thank you for hanging out with us. Let us know how you did it in the chat. Are you up on the day, down on the day? Anything that you learned from the day? I saw Casey say today was a snoozer in the equities. I agree. Yeah, I mean, you look at the price action for the New York session; it was pretty choppy there. But Jason Haggerty, nice to meet you as well. Today's your first day. Thank you for joining. Scott Vaughn says, "Y'all going to be so proud of me. Positive money. I found something that works. Execution not nearly as important." Okay, interesting.
Well, good. Keep it up. See, Alan Barber up $47. Good job.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Down 29 for Shoebomb. That's a great job as well. Sometimes our job is to just conserve capital, and $29 is a recoverable loss, a managed loss. So good stuff. 15 trades, 10 points on every trade. I only have 4 losses. Okay. 124 for the day, 6-day streak, making sure I'm prepared for my next loser. The world is yours. I like that. Making sure I'm prepared for my next loser. Because once you start getting on a streak, it starts to feel like I can do whatever I want. And that's when we get blindsided by the markets. But preparing for your losses, whatever they're, the next trade, the next day, whatever it is, then you can accept it whenever it happens and just get right back on your streak. But let's get into the charts. As far as news goes, we didn't have much as far as planned numbers that were going to be big movers. We did have a New York Fed manufacturing number come in at -16. Forecast was -6. There was a 6-month and 3-month auction, 20-year auction as well. And then I think, again, like we said on Friday, a lot of the news is the unplanned news, escalations in the Middle East. Again, if we have any traders that are in that region currently, just praying for everybody's safety and for clearer heads to kind of de-escalate what's going on right now. But we will have to see. Coach Paul, anything you got on the news?
Yeah, kind of separate. You would think with missiles flying in the Middle East, some social unrest, that you would buy stocks. That's why I don't follow my economic training as a trader.
Yep.
But FOMC this week, I think, is probably top of mind. And Well, there's some. I saw AMD surge 9% today.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So earnings. They seem to be, um, and they always seem to be the catalyst for stocks. So you know, starting last night, we had that sharp spike down, which was a signal to buy. Um, so what can we talk about this a lot? Stocks are designed to go up,
Yep.
and they did. So other than that, I don't see any big headlines.
Okay.
Um, but like you said, it's all good till the next tweet.
100%. So let's take a look at the charts. We have 35 different markets we can trade with Top Step accounts. And today, to the upside, we had, to the downside, we had crude oil down 2.27%, corn down 2.32%, and soybean meal, our biggest percentage mover to the downside at 2.77%. To the upside, we have micro Bitcoin futures up 3.34%, natural gas up 4.44%, and soybean oil up 8.89% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. That's a huge move. It actually went limit up. Soybean oil went limit up for the second day in a row, where it did go limit up on Friday as well.
And soybeans were down 8 cents.
Hmm.
So once again, trade each contract separately.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't see the bean oil wasn't on my map, but let's see. That's a runaway market.
Yeah, it is. 2 days limit up. Can it keep going? Might be looking at that tomorrow. Uh, The big four, we already talked about crude oil down 2.32%. The S&P is up about 1%. Gold down 1.43%. And the NASDAQ up 1.41% to round out our big four. Let's pull up an S&P chart here on a daily since we're starting the week. Let me change these moving averages. Someone asked about these moving averages. I'll explain what I did a little bit later. But I need to change the values back. There we go. All right, what are we looking at here on the daily in the S&P, Coach Paul?
Well, look what we bounced off again
20 moving
on the
average.
daily 20, which was right near the 200, which tells us that there is resting, buying in institutional size on the dips. But we're still in this range. I don't think we break out of it until FOMC, or there's just so much uncertainty. Um, there's no reason this can't just keep grinding sideways for
Yeah,
a large amount of time.
it's a great point. Hogue and I talked this morning on the opening call, and that's exactly what we talked about, right? And it was just, there are other markets that are, and for good reason, have fundamental reasons to be moving right now. And the equities just seem like they're just waiting and very comfortable doing so. Uh, really not going in, presenting a decent enough range, um, depending, if you can trade all day, presenting a decent enough range, but it's they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and there's a question here from JD 129. Coach Paul, are we better off trading off the moving averages or just rely on the direction and if price is above or below? It's a good question. I use it as a guide. I want to be aggressive on a buy if it gets near to 200. On the daily, that's where my bias is going to come from. So today, when as we go through the half an hour, I use it if it's above the 200 on a shorter term, the half hour, I can break it down into a 3-minute or 5-minute opening range breakout in equities is what I like to trade in the equities. And I'll trade the long side. Happened to work this morning. But that's I use it as a guide um, to give me my bias. That works for me. I don't preach it for everyone, but that's how I see it. I know this, the 200 moving average on the daily, large institutions watch that. So I like to surf. So I surf their buy orders, you could say. Um, but in anything, in anything, it gives me a trade that I want to execute. But in anything, how much can I afford? How much am I can I not even what I'm willing to risk? Because sometimes we're willing to risk more than we have, but how much I can afford to risk. Um, Hope that answers your question.
Yep, it does. All right, so let's take a look at last night's price action. Like you said, we gapped down, kind of tested that 6,000 evens and bounced, and that was the low of the day. Uh, I think what we've been seeing, and today's a perfect example of it as well, is a lot of the better trading right now is happening in the Asia and London sessions, and kind of not leaving a whole lot left for the New York session here. That opening gap low of the day, we gapped down under the 200 moving average on the 30-minute. This is this white line right here, and quickly made our way there. One directional move. It looked like we were just going to sell off, but I guess the war headlines are not enough to keep the equity markets down, and we just continued to rally. Anything you got about the overnight session, Coach Wall?
Um, that wa- I did. That was kind of shocking. You would think with all the news headlines, and when we talked before, you have to trade your account, not the news. Um, it was immediately bought.
Yep.
Filled that gap and ran. Not it also on light volume, so I think there was a lot of short covering. Um, we went right back to unchanged and to the 200 moving average where we opened around this morning. Um, but still not very convinced buying.
No.
Look at most of today's range after the opening. There was a nice 2-to-1 trade off the on a 3-minute,
Yes, there was.
but there was I think there's not much follow through.
Yeah. Yeah, if
As
we
we
look at a
talked
higher time frame, we zoom out. We're just rejecting at the upper extremes of ranges that we've been in.
exactly, and I put a line chart that helped me.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I stopped trading. I'm like, the equities. I just said, okay, I'm done.
Yep.
Once again, that's in that range. We're in a range. Um, but it was a nice trade on a 3-minute opening range trade.
It was. It was. I did miss that one. I think I was in a gold trade at the time. Um, and I do want to explain a little bit about the trade that I took to the short side towards the end of fast markets. And kind of exactly what we've been saying, Coach Paul. The markets are in a range. They're very comfortable staying here. My trade was in the NASDAQ. And if you look at the NASDAQ on a daily chart, hasn't gone anywhere over the last 3 weeks. So the trade that I took was, and we said it during the opening call, if I'm going to take a short in this market, it has to stop moving upwards first, right? It can't just be a short at a level. The volume has to die to the upside. So the short that I took was when we start to see that rounding pattern at the top here, above that 22,200 level, which is a major psych level. Everybody who's trading the NASDAQ knows we're going to be trading there. And if we look at that 22,200 and then the volume that traded above it, like you said, Coach Paul, not very convincing. So when that volume failed on this candle right here, is where I was looking to get short, risk new high a day, and it wasn't the biggest trade, and it wasn't going to be unless we had, what we've seen to the downside is there has to be some significant volume, usually some type of catalyst, a headline that brings us lower, and that just wasn't the case here. So a see profit, take profit trade. And if I'm trading the equities right now, that's kind of how I have to approach it. Unless I'm getting long at a great spot, right? Here's the 200 moving average on the 30-minute. This white line down here, that's a different trade, right? If I'm getting long here, I can give it a little bit of room and let this one work and see where the market goes for the day. And if you get that trade location, you could have let the auto liquidator close this trade and still made 140 points, right? But the short, I have to frame that trade differently because the market's not presenting great opportunities until it is, right? It's either very quiet, take your scalps, or hey, the market's selling off because someone just tweeted something, so take that full trade. But there's still a decent enough opportunity in these ranges to make a little bit of money. You just have to have reasonable expectations.
Key word there, reasonable.
Yeah.
It's not giving opportunity, too much opportunity. I mean, the range was decent,
Yeah.
but you had to be involved from last night
Correct.
to catch the range. I mean, the range itself was, what is the average true range I have? Is and in NASDAQ was 352. We had a 500-point range. And coach, you said it earlier, most of the action's happening overnight.
Yep. Yep. Still holding that 200 moving average on the daily. The 20 moving average on the daily. Still holding it. Decent range today, 466 points in the NASDAQ. I think that was over the daily ATR. But again, these markets are open 23 hours and a lot of the opportunity has been overnight. And as soon as I change my sleep schedule to take advantage of it, it's going to go back the other way. So just.
That's Murphy's Law.
Right. All right. Let's go over anything else you got in the equities?
That's it, really. I think my expectation is more of the same tomorrow.
There you go. There we go. All right, let's move over. Just quick look at the Dow right under that 200 moving average. It's right there. But let's go to gold. Gold was a interesting one today.
Yeah.
Here's gold on the daily.
Still in. It wasn't an outside candle. Boy, it came close.
Yeah.
But interesting. Still in the uptrend, but look at we're rejecting those highs at what, 1, 2, 3, 4th time. So let's mark that area.
It's 50% of the daily candle that made an all-time high.
Yeah, I still like this market on the upside. I did trade it and lost a little bit of money early last night. Didn't come back, but it seems to me that there's liquidation of some sort going on. At what's that 50% level?
3472. We'll call it 3472.
So let's say the 75 level.
Yep.
We really need to close above that level.
Yeah.
We could see it rip to the upside, but until then, it kind of feels, the gold feels like a when you're benching your new weight and your arms start crumbling when you're 3/4 of the way up.
Yeah.
I think it's short term, it's heavy. Whether you can plow through, I want to see a close above 75.
Yep. I want to take a quick look at the weekly just to kind of update something we saw on the opening call. This weekly candle, last week's weekly candle, one of the things we talked about was 50% of that candle, where if you look at gold on a weekly, even if we are trending higher, there hasn't been really a week where we didn't retest 50% of the weekly range. So not surprised to see a little bit of a pullback, especially where we opened up the week in gold here. See where we close this week. But 33.89 is that area. I did trade gold today, Coach Paul, and then I missed one. I wasn't happy about it.
Oh, well, let's see it. So you can come to terms with it.
So the original trade I took, both of the trades I was looking at were longs in gold. The original trade I took was a J trade, a failed J trade, and I'm very happy to share this one because we can't cherry pick examples. We had high volume here, 9:15. Let me clear this up a little bit. 9:15 Eastern time, we had a high volume 3-minute candle. If we look at what the day looked like at that point, that was the low of day, and then we got to close above it. Right, we got to close above here. So I took the long, looking for a 2-to-1, so risking about 10 points to make 20. We didn't see any follow through to the upside on that trade, and it was a loser. Right, this is just one of the times where it's not going to work out. Now, would I take this trade again? 100%. Right, because we've seen how many times that this exact trade is a winning trade. That wasn't one of the times, and I think this is why it's important to not over leverage. Because what about this said that it was going to fail at that point?
Was below the 200 moving average for me
On the 30?
on the 3-minute.
Was it? Yeah, it was.
Is that the yellow line, the 200? Yeah. I just first
Okay,
thing I
yeah, there you
saw.
go. Yeah, right there.
Was it below it on the half hour?
On the half hour, it was above it. So
Okay.
there it is on the half
So
hour.
I still take that trade. Matter
Hmm.
of fact, well, look at that. We'll go back to the 3-minute, explain your trade, and we'll
Oh
look at the
yeah,
half hour.
this is I was gonna get to that one because that was the missed one that we took. But yeah, I mean this trade, I would take this again. Right, cost me $400 on a couple of micros. I would take that trade again. We did, and during the opening call, we did say that 200 moving average at 3,400 is an interesting area, and we can see where that volume spike went to. And I'll give it to you from there, Coach Paul.
Well, we spiked, but look at the size of that candle. And this is a little different. Now, we talk about, trading in the zone, about 7 principles of continuously successful traders. Now, this one here, that's a bit rich to take.
Mhm.
We did close above it, but the rule was to take it, the risk is all the way to the low.
Yeah, that's 22 points.
I wouldn't take that. Now, why? I'm not, but it's too much. That was the closed, wasn't it? That volume.
No, this was not. This was
No?
no, this was there was a headline that came out. That was at 8:54 Eastern time.
Wow. Wow. Well, once again, I wouldn't take that trade because of the risk. And the first one, absolutely, I'll take that trade. If someone, this isn't 100%. There's never going to be 100%. Don't fool yourself if someone tries to sell you that. It's a game of probabilities. And in probabilities, if you're 50%, which is a good strategy, if you get 2-to-1 over time, you have a good probability of being profitable. This one, that's way too much risk. Now, looking at it at this current moment, I'm going to watch this opening half hour and see if we can get some movement to the upside.
Yep.
Now, that I'm going to look for tonight.
Good stuff. Yeah, I called it out. I should have taken this trade. I do have to rewatch the fast markets tape today and see why I didn't click the button. Because it was one we talked about an hour before it happened. I got to see why I didn't click that button there because that was a pretty quick trade. I did take, and like you said, Coach Paul, this one was a little bit too rich. I did take this trade once we closed above and took it for a scratch for that reason. Right, really no momentum. If we attach VWAP to this high volume, it stayed in the middle of the range, right? So there was really no momentum once we got back up to those highs where that selling came in. And I had to take that for scratch. I said, if this trade works out, I'd be more upset if this trade is a loser than I would be happy with the result of a winning trade on this one. Because it was just, like you said, it was way too expensive. And it was almost a wish that I was in at 3,400 which was the trade I missed. So, I hear sometimes people say you don't get smarter when you get in the trade, but you can realize that you took a trade for a dumb reason.
But you also get more information
100%.
because every time you put on a trade, you have to take risk. What does that mean? Because there's uncertainty.
Yep.
Just like in a poker game, you have to pay to see the next card. Or so here,
Right.
you got more information. It wasn't moving. You know, th- boom, exit.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not working out as I planned. I don't need to wait, especially on the background of how much risk there was in that
Yeah.
based on the J trade.
Yep. Yeah. Better trade here was technically a short, but uh, that's neither here nor there. Coach, we got a question from John John. I think about the moving averages. You were talking about, being above the 200 moving average. Do you only take trades in the direction of your bias, or does it depend?
I take trades on my bias. And with that, also understand I look at many different, up to 12 different markets. I'm going to match them with my bias. I'm not in one market all the time. I'm a little different than most people, but I'm looking for a certain structure, and it could be in S&P, it could be in gold, it could be in Canadian dollar.
Right.
Lately, the Canadian dollar is the one that's really working. The rest have been pretty random.
It's
So in the direction. So
good stuff. We got a question here from APJ, and then Jason Haggerty. I see your question about the J trade. We will try to explain that one as well. Try to find a market that actually gave us one. But volume profile. So APJ, I asked Deanna this morning how she reads volume profile. She told me to ask you. Can you explain your strategy on reading volume? So I'm not really a volume profile person. When I read volume, it's the volume on the bottom of the charts here. Right? I'm looking at volume by time. But volume profile, I think, is valuable. What I use volume profile for is identify value area, right? So the value area on a default volume profile is going to be 70% of the volume traded for the day, right? So let's take a look really quick. And I don't want to keep passing the buck, but Coach Vince is actually is actually the volume profile guy. Um,
yeah,
but go ahead, Coach.
it's by the way, it's a valuable tool.
Yeah, it is.
Um, it's it, just like any. There's a lot of valuable tools. So I sometimes I'll bring that up. In this case, it gives me an idea that we're below that value on the and looking back at that trade, that volume is underneath that point of control on volume. I might give that might be information for a trader to go, no, it's too much
Yeah.
to to it's not if it was above it, yes. Kind of like when I talk about a 200 moving average. This could be the same thing. I'm not looking for buys underneath here. Maybe I'm short. I'm only looking to sell. And that one, look at the volume over time. It's and when we would talk, this is another way to look at it. That volume, we're below a lot of volume in the last 2 days. That's not that's not bullish. So when you look at a volume profile, it's the seeing the distribution. And we talk about volume moves a market, prices don't. So that when I use volume profile, I'm going to look at that and go, well, I want to buy it. And then we're underneath a structure like that. I'll wait till I can find tomorrow to see if we get volume on the lower side and break out.
Yeah, I mean, when you put this like this, volume profile is a great tool. I think I personally don't like it because visually it just takes up too much space on the charts. But if you map out this value area like we have here, the gold line here is what's called point of control. We can see when we spiked last night, We bounced right off of that point of control and rallied up first. And then once we closed below point of control, let me see something here. Okay, no, it stayed higher the whole time. But yeah, that value area, 70% of the volume. This is red box here. And if now we continue to frame this out, like Coach Paul was saying, where my long was, if I use volume profile now, do I take this long here? Right? Because we're below value from the prior day, right? Where the market is down. What is the market saying at that point, right? What does that mean, right? We're below value. The market is saying that whatever higher prices you were trading, we don't want to trade, right? So if there are buyers up here and price keeps going lower, they sell. So now what you could do with this volume profile is, and Coach Vince is going to do this tonight in his session in Discord. Coach Ray is most likely as well. But what's the value area from today? Right? You'll hear Hogue say, the market is opening in range and in value, or outside of range, outside of value. Here's your value area: 34.08 at the low, 34.51 at the high, which is a pretty big value area. Right? Now, does the market accept back into value, right, where it's traded more than 70%, or does it try to find balance somewhere else?
There we go.
But
And right now, that looks heavy to me
yep,
from that point of view.
yeah. Tribe, can I explain what the delta setting does on this? It tries to say who the buyers and sellers were, but I wouldn't use that. It looks, I mean, maybe somebody else can make sense of it, but I guess it looks like it's saying there's more sellers here, right? All this is orange.
Is that a delta imbalance?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be showing. But I don't know how,
How to use it and
yeah,
whether one of the things is the data points. I found in a lot of these are where they start and begin. It can be misleading. I've worked, as a matter of fact, last couple of weeks I've been working on trying to keep a delta in balance, and I haven't found, like coaches, I haven't found much success on measuring it right. You can see a delta in balance, and it keeps up a positive, and it keeps going down.
right.
Now that could signal bad buying, but to me, it tends to go, oh, well, it's something that I'm not finding useful in my trading.
Agreed. Some more volume profile stuff here. Silo says point of control changes during the day. Yeah, if you're using a developing volume profile, then you want to use developing point of control. But if you're using, a prior day's volume profile to identify levels, then you can just use the standard point of control. All right. Anything else you got on gold, Coach Paul?
That's it. I'm looking. I think tonight will be an interesting night.
Yes, it will.
What time? What time is Beijing open?
8 p.m.
8 Central. 9.
8 Central.
Uh,
8 Central. Let's take a look at crude oil. Crude was pretty wild today. High to low, 11% move in 11.5% move in crude oil. The high of the day, 77.60. What was that high? 77.49, and the low, 69.38. Really big range.
$8 range.
Huge range. Huge range. When the daily ATR is $3, and that's just increased. So crude is, and it makes sense with all that we see going on in the Middle East, that this market is probably one of the most volatile that we have. Let's take a look. Anything you see on the daily, Coach Paul?
Yeah, we couldn't get over that resistance that we still have that line. What was that price? 77. Well, it was 78.
78.
$78.
Yep, 78.
Let's go to we're still above the 200. We're inside Friday's range. Then we'll go into the half hour where we went right down to where we took off Thursday night, almost to the tick, bounced off the white line, and settled lower, but still, look at that. There's that double top.
Yep.
And which happened in the first couple minutes last night, but was rejected. There was selling there off the get-go. We had urgency on the sell side. We've completed the correction down to where we took off when the news headline broke out.
Yep.
Still looks pretty positive from a news point of view. Do you want to be short if a missile or something happens in the Gulf of Hormuz, which can happen as we speak,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So this market is going to be sensitive and break it down. I think that offers a lot of good short-term opportunity.
Agreed. This was another one where I think I talked about a trade and I missed it. And I know we talk a lot about strategy. We talk a lot about, looking for trade setups and things like that. But part of that, it's only your playbook is only as good as your execution of it. And I think for me, and I'll review a little bit today, and I think I said it, on the opening call when we came in this morning. I was on vacation a little bit last week, took a couple days off, had a pretty crazy weekend, and came into the day thinking, you know what, maybe I'm not in the clearest mind to be taking trades. Am I giving myself an excuse for not taking good setups? Maybe, but I think also when you're in that mindset, it's important to pay attention to when you say that, because again, these are great setups. But for whatever reason, I wasn't mentally there, and maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you say that, right? It's like, oh, I'm not mentally here, so then you aren't. Uh, but you know, do check-ins with yourself throughout the day to kind of make sure that you're making the right decisions for yourself. And I think part of the reason I stepped away from the charts coach ball was knowing that these should have been great trades and I didn't take them. And then I said, hey, I got to go do something else because I'm going to try to find some shit. And I
Well,
would have found shit,
we
literally.
we can find a reason.
Yeah.
When you're sometimes it's I wouldn't say it's a good idea. I think it's imperative that you
Mhm.
spend time away.
Yeah, for sure.
This is this takes a lot of energy. Even though you might be sitting at your chair watching it, but mentally you're absorbing a lot of uh, uncertainty and anxiety, and sometimes overjoyed, and
Yep.
you have to remain neutral to execute your edge. And if you're not mentally prepared, then your emotions take over. And I highly suggest at least once a full week away at
Yeah.
minimum. Guess what? They'll be there when you come back.
Oh, yeah. They
They
didn't go
don't go
anywhere.
away. They didn't go
They
anywhere.
didn't go, literally didn't go anywhere in the equities. They stayed still.
Who is our friend that was in Spain? I like what he said. He stopped trading.
Oh, yeah. Who went to Spain?
Chauncey
Chauncey. Yeah, it was Chauncey. And then
just
came
got
back and
back.
traded well.
There we go. I, man, do it. If you're if you can't get away from the markets, then that's kind of an addiction. And then you're just there for the action.
Yeah.
Be aware of that.
Yep.
I mean, that's a reset. We talk about instead of resetting, reset your emotional being.
Reset
Because
yourself.
yeah, to me, I just love being on a beach.
Yeah.
It just calms me. I relax. Rest of the world goes by. By the way, the market doesn't miss you.
Nope.
Doesn't think about you.
finds
But
finds the next sucker that's trading without a stop loss and takes his money instead.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, rewind and you know what? Live life.
Yeah, 100%. But gold, crude oil back in play here, moving pretty well. Got the 200 moving average at 69.43 on the 30-minute chart. This is a market I'm going to continue to pay attention to. As we see the volatility here. We say it all the time in the beginning of the show. Our goal is to identify opportunities, see how we can take advantage of these opportunities. Crude is presenting them right now, and that is a market that I've traded and will continue to look for opportunities here. Anything you got in crude oil, Coach Paul?
Yeah, like I said on review, it's hypersensitive to the
Hmm.
upside, and my bias is to buy it. What I will do is adjust my size. I will not be trading a full contract. I'll be trading um, half of that. Um, so five micros. With that said, I'm looking. I think the potential is greater on the upside than the downside, but I can be wrong, and I'm willing to pay to find out. Uh, the upside, like I said, what is concerning is that double top.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, on a fundamental basis, Saudi Arabia is going to put as much oil as they can at these prices.
Hmm.
But if you hear any news of the Straits of Hormuz being shut down, however, I mean, this thing will light up like it did Thursday night.
Yeah.
Um, so to me, if that's the case, as we saw Thursday night, I mean, there'll be no sellers.
Right.
But it's 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 on a hairpin.
Yeah.
Just um, so I find opportunity there.
100%. All right. Let's get to. I think we had some more questions in the chat. We answered most of those. Uh, Andrew, I hear you, man. Yeah. Shout out to Andrew, our moderator in the chat, sending you all of our questions. Dealing with the chat and for all the Top Step shows, really.
He does a
Andrew,
great job.
these shows do not run without Andrew. And just know that he sees everything. Becky wants to know, how do you identify a daily bias, Coach Paul?
For me, that's a very good question.
Hmm.
A daily bias is part of my trading plan. My plan is to identify markets that are trending. In this example, crude oil is trending up. It's above the 200.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for opportunities to buy it. So I come down to the half hour. This is how I'm going to execute it. So it's above the half hour. Now I'm going to watch the opening. And at night, I look at the first half an hour. I have a bias to buy it. And like last night, I was looking to buy it on a shorter term. I didn't get a chance. So in crude, while I didn't get short, my bias was to buy it. I saved a little bit of money by not buying it up there
That's a win.
and this is on a day trading basis. That's a win. Now, that's how I get my bias. You could use the opening range breakout, whichever, whether it's the 1 minute like they do on fast markets, whatever it closes above that 1 minute, that's your bias. So the key point in your bias is to be consistent. That's the way I look at my bias. Coach Jay could look at it differently.
Yeah, for me, I have started using the moving averages that Coach Paul talks about, the 20, really the 200 for the most part. And then I'm identifying once we start moving, right? What is volume saying about the move, right? So my daily bias is going to come from volume, right? I can have a general idea of where I think the market can trade to or wants to go. But in real time, the market's going to give us information, and my daily bias comes from there. So I think I'm a little bit of a different trader than Coach Paul in that sense, where I might look for a short in this situation in crude oil, right? If it presents itself, because we're a little bit extended from the 200 moving average, but the volume has to say that as well, right? It can't be a short just because it's up too high, because like Coach Paul said, we're above this 200 moving average because this market is trending up. So if you're taking a short, you're taking a counter trend trade. It can't just be, oh, it went up too high, so I want to short it. Right? The volume has to agree with it from there. And yeah, I think that Coach Paul, I think we've been working with each other so long. It's almost like we're both looking at the same damn thing.
We end up and by the way, I hear also there's a 3-minute on Crude last night, or a 5-minute. Let's go with a 5-minute. We don't have to do a lot of people use the 5-minute. Okay. I could use that on a day trade, attach a VWAP, and do a breakout of VWAP. That's how I get my bias, which way it goes.
Yep.
So it closes out, I sell it. I would use it too. My bias is to buy it. Look at that 5-minute. I'm done, but find some other place to buy it. So your bias needs to be part of your process. What you don't want to do is do impulsive trading. And because what is impulsive? You're not following any plan. You have no. We talked about this last week. Exit plan. Anytime you enter, you should already have framed out your exit. So in your bias, it has to be part of a plan that you execute every time you make a trade. So that's our bias. This one, you don't come in the day with a bias. You wait for the first 5 minutes as a breakout. Am I willing to risk that whole range? I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's a pretty big range. That we're talking about almost $3 there, $2.50, which is pretty expensive in crude oil. Pretty expensive. All right. Any other markets we want to talk about, Coach Paul? Rob Canton had it, but Rob left. I think Rob left. Rob, why'd you leave? He says, any plans for Powell tomorrow or Wednesday, or only interested in technicals here? We're probably more interested in technicals than anything. The fundamental stuff just makes things go faster. Perfect example, gold. Buying it off that friggin' 200 moving average. And why I say that is this move down to that 200 moving average, Coach Paul, happened when there was a headline. It's like, oh, something's coming out of the Middle East. Everyone freeze for a second. Don't move. And when that happens, it gives you the best trade location, almost 25-point move in one direction. So we're more focused on technicals than anything because I can't trade the fundamentals, unfortunately. Like I literally can't make a decision that isn't technically going to show up on a chart. Right? The fundamentals are sometimes going to show up on the chart, sometimes they're not. The technicals are always going to show up on a chart. But any plans for Powell FOMC this week, Coach Paul?
For day trading, do not. While the announcement, I'm not going to be involved on a day trade. On my swing trades, I have to. But it's not in a day trade. After he speaks, we've gone through how many times, Coach Jay? Wait for it.
Yeah.
And the announcement and trade after it. The most volatile time, and you might make it.
Yeah.
But you still have to focus on your risk management. These are not large accounts, but they're but 90% of the time they're large movements. So if you're up in front of it, you have to be right. You're going to trade in front of it. I've done that before. I don't ever want to be in a situation where I have to be right.
Yeah.
That in its definition is gambling.
Yep.
Don't do it. Maybe you do a micro if you have $5,000 in your account and you're willing to take the risk.
There you go. There you go. All right, Coach Paul. Any other markets we want to talk about? We got about 10 minutes left.
Let's look at micro Bitcoin.
Micro Bitcoin. On a daily, continuing the rally. Looks a lot like the equities charts, maybe a little bit stronger.
It's just, I don't know if it's what the news was, and there was some, but had a nice trade today. It's back above the 20-day moving average, still trending higher. But it was a nice trade. If we look at 30-minute, it's actually the volatility is it's the most calm market I know of right now.
Yeah,
All right. So last night,
just rally, just go.
there we go. It was buying from the get-go. Finished towards the high. You could almost say at the highs of the day, but this was a really. I looked back. I did buy it last night. I look at it, I go, what? What's that? um, but now we just talked about a bias. Let's look at the first half an hour. We have a breakout. Am I willing to take that risk to new lows?
In micro Bitcoin, yes.
Yeah, maybe I do too. Maybe I don't. I don't like it. I want to sell it. Okay. There's the opening. And by the way, there was no gap. It was it wasn't even a gap. And Bitcoin is trades 24/7. So it was open all weekend, and we opened up basically unchanged, where we found buyers off the opening. This looks the half hour looks good, the daily looks good, and I can see continuation.
Yeah, looks pretty good. We're about 3.5% off the all-time high in micro Bitcoin, and looking pretty strong. Looking pretty strong. All right. Lunatic pennies. I'm gonna be honest. I'm trying to keep up with your messages in the chat, but they are just you're writing a textbook in there. But here's what I'll say to you, lunatic pennies. If the 90% are doing something and it's not working for them, just do the opposite. The key is don't tell everyone, because then if you tell them, then the 90% is going to start doing what you do, and now we're in trouble, right? But yeah, if you have a bias, what did you say here? If you have a bias and you have a bias for more than 10 minutes, the market can change it. The market can change the bias in 10 seconds, or it can stay in one direction for 10 years, depending on the time frame that you're looking at it. But trying to keep up with that messaging, which messages, but there's a lot of text in there. Try to keep it concise if you can. Tribe had a question, Coach Paul. Have you heard anything about single stock futures? Wondering how you think this might change the market should that become a thing.
Well, it's been around
It's
for
been a thing.
20 years. I
Yeah.
think I used to trade them all the time. It wasn't. It just didn't work out. I love the idea of single stock futures. You know who doesn't love the idea of single stock futures?
CME.
Oh no, the CME is all for it.
Okay.
The brokerage firms on Wall Street,
Oh, yeah.
because
That makes
leverage.
sense.
It's less margin. Used
Yeah.
to trade them. I like them a lot. They are they're available. They just don't trade. Why
Hmm.
don't they trade? Well, the larger institutions have to be involved, and they're not involved. Now, I could go on with my tin hat and give you 10 different reasons why they don't want it, but it hasn't garnered enough volume. Can that change? Well, once NASDAQ goes 24-hour trading, that could change. But they've been around a long time. I've traded them. I love them, but they're just not liquid enough. Yeah, absolutely. On Tesla. Yeah, they'd be great trading tools. I could go on. There was ways you could arb against the 7 against the NASDAQ. maybe this time, I don't know. Is there talk that it's coming back?
I think there is. Yeah, I tried to look it up. I think Tribe had mentioned it before. Yeah, there's talk about them coming back. Um, but no, I don't think yet.
Um, but it could be different this time. Last time they tried it, they would have really had to compete against the specialists. So maybe this time it's different.
Oh, okay. End of the year, Tribe says.
End of the year?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll see. I wouldn't trade them off the get-go. I would see how the volume comes in, but I hope they do. Oh, um, big fan.
There we go. There we go. All right. Any other markets we want to talk about, Coach Paul?
Well, we covered the big
Canadian dollar?
since we're Canadian dollar.
You mentioned this on Friday when I was in Canada. Uh,
Did you buy them before you
I
went
didn't.
out drinking?
I didn't. I should have.
This is a leak up. This is a really steady. I really like this market. Um, num- this this daily look at that rounding. It's above the 200. Broken a long-term downtrend line. I, I there, today we closed above it. Um, Maybe because a lot of leaders in the G7 have to go convert some Canadian. No, but this market does. And look at that cup and handle potential. I mean, that's a round. That is the put on a line chart. There we go. There's the cup and handle. This market's got big side potential to the upside for me, and it doesn't. It's got a good size that you don't you can trade that without the threat of getting blown out every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a I dare say a gentle trade, but it's trending. Um, it's above 200. I'm just finding ways to buy it.
Nice. What's the tick value for the Canadian dollar?
$10.
$10 a
And
tick.
it trades half ticks, so it's
$5.
$5 a
Okay,
tick.
gotcha. Good stuff. All right, back to the single stock futures. Tribe has a million questions about them. Tribe, I saw your message earlier in Discord. I'm not the best person to answer these, so I'm gonna throw these back to you, Coach Paul. Do you think fundamentals will play more of a role with single stock futures? And we'll get back to trading, the futures that we trade, but you think fundamentals will play more of a role, or do you still trade them technically?
Technically, the fundamentals will play a role in the underlying. Remember, it's going to be a derivative. Earnings will still matter. I mean, stocks are driven by what? Earnings. They don't get the earnings.
Yep.
What happens to the stock? So remember, the futures are derived from the value of an underlying contract. So the technicals will, I'll still be a technical. The fundamentals will still be affecting the large institution. But as a trader, by the time the news comes out, what's the old Rudyard Kipling quote? If you can keep your head above water while all others around you are drowning, obviously you haven't heard the news. It goes, I mean, I might have butchered that, but the bottom line is by the time you hear the news,
It's too late.
I mean, think about it. Unless someone's texting you early, I mean, I'm not in that club. And neither are any of our viewers. So the fundamentals still will determine the longer term um, trade in stocks. But remember, we're derivatives derived from an underlying contract, our value. but it gives so much more opportunity.
Maybe one day we see single stock futures with Topstep accounts, but I will say the volume would definitely have to come in there before it's something that we add.
I
But
mean,
you never know.
if you talk about margin efficiency, you're better off with futures.
Hmm.
I think it would drive ETFs don't want it to happen. Well, unless you could, there will be an arb between an ETF and a, but I just give it. It's a big opportunity. I'm not saying it's going to work this time around, but I sure, man, I hope it does.
Good stuff. Well, we are at time. Oh, look at that. Any other markets you want to talk about, Coach Paul? Anything on your scouting report? You gave us Canadian dollar.
Canadian dollar and Bitcoin to the upside. Wow, platinum hit a nice up move today.
Yeah, it did.
Let's look at the daily. Now, that's a potential reversal. Blow off top. Let's mark Friday's low. We held it. This could come tumbling back down to the 20-day in a hurry. But see that outside range on Friday, and we really didn't recover it. So this could have an explosive move. Either way, it trades through that low and stays there for half an hour. I'm going to look to sell it. Friday's candle was an outside day. Took out what, 2 days?
2 days, 3 days.
Highs of what, multi-year highs?
Yep, right off that 1300.
Yeah, we could see. We couldn't get through there today, but let's look. I'm going to look at tonight, and that's all I have.
Good stuff. Thank you, Coach Paul. Let's go ahead and wrap it up there. Shanti, am I going to play Dakota in basketball? I got to make sure my curries can fit in the luggage. But if I do, I might lose the bet on equities making all-time highs before Friday. But I won't lose that game. I'll put money on that.
I got money on you, Coach.
Yeah, I'll put my money.
I'll let you borrow some of my old Jordans.
There you go. There you
You're
go.
in town.
But speaking of which, I'm not going to be here for At the Buzzer for the rest of the week. I am flying out to Chicago tomorrow for the Topstep Trader Experience in Chicago. Hopefully, any of you that are here watching us, or maybe some of you are coming to the meetup. It'd be nice to meet you all in person on Wednesday night. I'm going to get to meet Coach Paul for the first time in person as well, which should be pretty cool. Shubham, we didn't talk about likes. We're at 89 likes right now. If you can, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button if you haven't done so already. Brad Sims is going to be there. I'm excited to meet the Topstep community, meet the traders, meet the team. But Anne-Marie and Coach Paul are going to be doing At the Buzzer this week. So you're in great hands with Anne-Marie and Coach Paul. I'm going to try to be watching as much as I can as well, because there's always a ton to learn from them both. But I will not be here. I think I'll be back on At the Buzzer on Friday. But thanks everyone for joining. Coach Paul, you got anything before we go?
Yeah, what's this about a bag of peas?
If I lose to Dakota, I got to eat a bag of peas, I guess. Frozen peas. I won't lose.
Peas.
I won't lose.
Well, looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Anyone else out there, this ought to be a fun event. In the meantime, if you're burning out or you're feeling like you're not trading well and you can't, we talked about earlier in the show, take some time off. Come back refreshed.
Yep.
And my money's on you, Coach Jay, and that's all I have to say.
I appreciate it, Coach. I didn't think you would say it any other way. What's the spread? If we play a game to 11, I'd say.
Oh, you got to be 21. 11's too close.
11's too close? All right. Game to 21, 4.5. 4.5 points.
That's fair.
4.5. Yeah, I think that's solid. You guys got
Indoor or outdoor?
wherever we can find a place to play, wherever we can find a place and some time to play. We got to figure out if we can fit it in the schedule. But I'd give myself in a game 21. I give myself a 4.5. You guys got to remember I'm old, so that's why I said 11 originally, Coach Wall.
Oh, okay. 21 should be the but that's awesome.
Yeah, it should be a
2
lot of fun.
peas in a pod. Oh, there you go.
Should be a lot of fun. But
All right.
thank you, everyone.
If you guys do play, let me know. I'll make sure I'll show up.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're gonna get it on camera if we do. But I'm only gonna sign a release to release the footage if I win. So you guys will only ever know about this basketball game if I win. All right.
All right.
Thanks everyone for
Everybody
joining. See you all soon. Trade well, manage your risk, and we'll talk to you later.
bye.